opinions. But folks, I don't think I've quite seen him this hot around the collar in a long time. We're going to talk about the assault weapons ban that passed the Senate Judiciary Committee, and yet inside observers are saying it is dead on arrival in the U.S. Senate. What's behind that? We're going to talk with Charles about that and anybody else who wants to join the conversation today on the Fallon Forum.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Ed Fallon here, folks. Gateway Market and Cafe is your locally owned source for specialty groceries. Enjoy chef-crafted, prepared foods, artisan baked goods, organic produce, specialty cheeses, and hand-selected wines and craft beer. Visit the lively cafe for breakfast, lunch, or dinner 7 days a week. Gateway Market is centrally located on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and Woodland Ave. Stop by or visit www.gatewaymarket.com for more details. That's Gateway Market, folks. Good food, great community.
This moment of silence brought to you by Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering, home of Des Moines' premier rooftop dining experience. Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
On March 28th, Equal Justice After Hours is Iowa Legal Aid's annual fundraiser that helps provide access to justice for low-income Iowans. The event includes a reception and program at the Temple for the Performing Arts in Des Moines. It also includes remarks by Georgetown University law professor Peter Edelman and the induction of Robert Oberbilly into the Iowa Legal Aid Hall of Fame. Tickets start at $50 and sponsorship opportunities are available. Contact Terry Bennett at tbennett@iowalaw.org. That's tbennett@iowalaw.org.
Ludwig van Beethoven here. I used to be so tired all the time, not from composing and playing, but from moving my piano. But now I feel so much better. I call S&P Piano and they will bring my piano anywhere. They also sell and rent pianos, used ones, new ones. You get the idea.
Call S&P Piano right away at 208-6453. That's 208-6453.
S&P Piano.
Times are tough, and most people are just trying to make their cars last a little bit longer. That's why you should know about Sargent's Garage in Des Moines. You can trust Sargent's to make the right diagnosis and give you a fair price. Whether it's a routine oil change or a major repair, Sargent's always does outstanding work. So don't give up on that old car just yet. Call Sargent's Garage at 246-8149. That's 246-8149 for Sargent's Garage.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Folks, that was a very, very brief rendition of Brother Truckers Downtown. And please, to those in the audience, you don't have to turn your cell phone off, just like I did, but you can if you want. Hey, we've got a busy week coming up. And a lot of program options are still in the works. But today we've got a hot topic that is it's obviously been an important issue for a long time, but it's kind of in the news front and center now because of the action of the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee last week on Thursday. The committee voted on a 10-8 vote to approve a bill that would renew the assault weapons ban. That is a ban that had been in place for 10 years. It expired in 2004. Some are wondering why it's taken us that long to go ahead and renew it. There are lots of, there's lots of people wondering why this bill is predicted to fail in the U.S. Senate. I mean, you've got the president tenacious on it. You've got a Democratic Senate. You've got public opinion vastly in favor of renewing the ban. I mean, I think like 80, 90%. And yet it looks like the Senate is going to cave to the NRA and do nothing in terms of renewing this ban. With me to process this and to go on a crazy wild rant is Dr. Charles Goldman. Charles, welcome to the show.
Good to be here, and I see we've gone international now.
We have gone international now. We picked up a few. We picked up a few viewers and listeners in Russia. So,
well, they're socialists, just like the president.
That's right.
Well, I think it'd be interesting to take a look at the history of the first assault weapons ban to put this in perspective. The first assault weapons ban was passed in '94, 5 years after the event that actually engendered the tendering of that assault weapons ban. And that was similarly a school shooting in California. Drifter, semi-automatic weapon, shot and killed, I believe, 5 children, injured about 20 others, including one adult teacher. And at that time, Barbara Feinstein was among the 3 senators, and Chuck Schumer at that time was a House of Representatives from New York, were able, after 5 years of negotiating, to push through the assault weapons ban, which then expired during the Bush administration 10 years later. And although I'm sure you don't want to hear this, it was a total failure. There's absolutely no reason to try to push one through again. And
so you're saying the assault weapons ban was a failure?
It was, absolutely.
Okay.
The reason it was a failure was, number one...
That wasn't where I expected you to go with this.
But number one, the difficulty of defining what an assault weapon is. Under the federal law, the assault weapon was defined as that a gun of some type that has a detachable magazine and 2 other military-style features. So quickly what happened was that the gun manufacturers simply designed weapons that would fit that criteria. California passed a tighter ban, which was to make it with a detachable magazine and 1 other military-style feature. So what the gun manufacturers did was change the magazine on the semi-automatic or automatic weapons that they were marketing at the time so that it required a small tool to remove the magazine, which would, in some sense, that did get across the purpose of the ban, which is quick reloading. But it allowed them to continue to sell these weapons pretty much unfettered. The other thing that happened was it grandfathered everybody who had weapons at the time. So what the manufacturers did, and this is how craven an industry this industry is, and that's what I think we really should talk about, is the craven nature of gun manufacturers in the United States. What they did was they simply put out 10 years worth of inventory. They were running their factories for 7 days a week, 24/7, up until the time of the ban. Since it was in stock at the time the ban came into play, they just sold those weapons. Not only did they sell those weapons, but they actually got a better price for them because they were now in relatively scarce supply. That's what the public perceived. And then, of course, there was also an exception for imported weapons. So they began to import weapons that they sold that were of the assault type.
But does that mean that the ban was ineffective or just wasn't structured correctly? It had too many loopholes.
Any ban that's going to pass this Congress is going to have a similar amount of loopholes. They're having trouble defining what an assault weapon is. They've already exempted 250 different weapons. It will be the same failure.
So do you think it's possible to define what an assault weapon is?
Obviously not, because we've had trouble with it before.
Well, I mean that's because of politics, but in terms of the issue itself, of the actual weapons.
I think everyone understands it's the ability to rapidly reload and fire large numbers of rounds in a minimum amount of time. But as some of your detractors point out in the email, we're again reacting to a relatively small number of events. And we continue to dance around the cultural problem in the United States around guns and also the political problem around guns. Because the perception is, we know that 90% of Americans, when polled, feel universal background checks, including at gun shows, should be the law of the land.
Right.
Yet you will never get that through this Congress. 90%.
Right, yeah.
Because in individual states, here once again, the fact that rural representation, southern representation, in their districts, they can't afford to be, or at least they perceive they cannot afford to be in any way for gun control. And that's what the NRA leads them to believe. The irony is, as as people who wrote in today to say that they're against the assault weapons ban, being reinstated. Gun violence is down in the United States. Violent crime is down in the United States. Yet to sell these weapons, you have to continue to engender the fear of violent crime.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Gun ownership in the United States is way down. The number of households in the United States that have weapons is less than a third. That is half what it was 40 years ago.
But a lot of the fear is based on this this premise that the U.S. government is going to become tyrannical, and this is the only way to defend democracy against an evil government.
Correct. No, I understand that. It's all part of how weapons are marketed in the United States. And we should talk about how weapons are marketed in the United States, in particular assault weapons.
Folks, Dr. Charles Goldman, my guest for the entire hour today. We're talking guns, we're talking assault weapons, we're talking about what's happening in the U.S. Senate on this issue this very week and last week. You're welcome to join the conversation on any side of the issue. It's 855-244-0077. That's the toll-free number. If you're calling local, just do 244-0077. That's 244-0077. You can always email me too at fallonforum@gmail.com. And I accept fond messages on Facebook as well. You know how to find me on that venue. Okay, so your contention is that this is not really an issue about good policy. It's an issue about catering to the interest of a very powerful interest group that is making money hand over fist.
Correct.
And wants to keep doing that.
Correct. And I think, again, you need to look at the history. I mean, an assault weapons ban is a feel-good piece of legislation. And maybe if you want to, for the sake of the elections in 2 years, make people vote on the assault weapons ban and then try to run on that, that's fine. But I don't think that as policy it's going to work. Because you need to look at what's happening in the United States. The gun manufacturers were losing money, hand over fist, in the early 2000s. Why? Because people aren't hunting anymore. Hunting revenues to the gun industry dropped 25% in the first 10 years of this decade, and they're projected to drop another 25% in the next 10 years. The demographics are against the gun manufacturers. Young people have no interest in guns. The ownership among people from 20 to 30 is one half of that of their parents. From 30 to 44, same thing. Latinos, increasing part of our population, gun ownership 18% versus Southern whites 61%. Women, who of course the gun industry is really pushing weapons to, including ones, as we'll talk about, with armor-piercing rounds, because that's extremely important for stopping a sexual predator who's very likely to be wearing body armor. We know who's wearing body armor out there, and that's the police.
So it's basically there's a shrinking demographic of those who are interested in buying guns. So the goal is to get them to increase the volume of purchase that they're
exactly. And what they found was that the two best things the one best thing that ever happened to the gun industry was the Obama presidency, because they immediately went out there, talked about that he's going to confiscate the guns, and of course the Obama presidency. Presenting to the Southern white male the abhorrent fact that there was a black president, gun sales took off.
Yeah.
The other thing was the industry found assault weapons to be a very lucrative part of the business, just like SUVs are. There's a huge profit margin, so be damned to the environment. So they started selling assault weapons, and they started selling assault weapons to various groups. And basically what they said is they needed to find replacement shooters. Now, what the people will tell you is, well, look at all these permit applications that occurred. But the fact of the matter is, it's the same people buying more guns.
Right.
And that's essentially, they had to sex up the gun, the assault weapon, to get the same people to buy more guns. And part of that is just what you said. They love shows like Preppers, on reality TV. People who think the apocalypse is coming and they're going to fight off whatever this government entity is.
Or zombies.
Yeah. Zombies is very big. In fact, they use.
You might benefit from an assault weapon. When a zombie
that's exactly
shows
right.
up at your door. I don't know.
I mean, one of the things. In fact, there was an excellent article talking about the marketing techniques of the gun manufacturers, and zombies is a big part of their manufacturing efforts, their advertising efforts. Sure.
Folks, let's go to the phone lines. 244-0077 if you'd like to join the conversation with myself and Dr. Charles Goldman. Let's go to Chuck from Urbandale. Hello, Chuck. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Ed. How you doing?
Good.
One of the things several of the things your guest said, I agree with. One is that violent crime in the United States is down. I'm looking at this FBI crime statistics in the United States page, and in 2007 there were almost 15,000 murders. It's been steadily dropping. 2011 was 12,600. And the other thing that jumped off the page at me, of the murders in 2011, only 323 were rifles. And that's all rifles, including assault weapons. 6,200 were handguns. 323 murders in 2011. 323 people were murdered from a rifle of any kind. Now, contrast that with knives. 1,700 were killed from knives. This is, he said right, it's feel-good legislation. It's not going to do anything.
But I think that may be where your agreement ends, though, Chuck.
What?
That may be where your agreement with Charles ends.
I don't think so. I think what he's saying is, and I agree when he says it's feel-good legislation.
Right.
The problem in the United States is not assault weapons. The problem is we have media that's 24-hour media nowadays, and when something happens, that it's dwelt upon. Now, it's a big deal. Yes, I agree. But I'm just saying it's not an epidemic of problems that we have here. But the other thing I want to ask is, why do you think the Second Amendment was added to the Constitution of the United States? What was the purpose of that? Because I keep hearing all these legislators on the radio being interviewed, and they're going, I'm trying to think if it wasn't the Vice President of the United States, he's like, 100 does not need an assault weapon to kill a deer. Is that why we have the Second Amendment, was for hunting?
Charles?
No, clearly not. I mean,
to defend ourselves against tyranny, both from abroad and from within.
Well, I think it was more the abroad part, because, in fact, one of the first acts of the new federal government was to confiscate the weapons of the Loyalists. But you're absolutely right. They felt that you should have freedom to defend yourself. Exactly. And there was clearly on the frontier of the United States at the time dangers that, they thought mandated you be able to have a weapon. The other issue was, of course, forming militias. I mean, that's in the Second Amendment also. I think continuing to argue about the Second Amendment is worthless. We have 300 million guns out there anyway. Most people use guns lawfully. I think that what we have to ask is, why is our culture this way? And to what degree have we become so irrational about guns that we find the NRA, for instance, one of the things that they are absolutely against is that people with protective orders in place should not be disarmed for some period of time.
Well, I don't agree with that, but I would tell you why we've become irrational. Gun rights advocates are probably taking a page out of the same the slippery slope argument. Just like people who do not want to see any type of restriction put on abortion. Normally sane people will say it's fine for late-term abortions where you suck a 9-month-old fetus's brains out, because we don't want to ban that, because that's the first step to banning all abortions.
I think you're absolutely right, and in fact, it's strategically, it's both morally and strategically bankrupt to do that, because if the left had not gone to that extreme position, it was clear that people were uncomfortable with late-term abortion. Even people who supported women's right to an abortion had discomfort with that.
Exactly.
And instead of simply taking what they could have gotten, which would have consolidated safe abortion in the United States, they went ahead and dug their heels in and said, we're going to push this down people's throats. And I absolutely agree with you. And that's what the NRA is doing. The NRA has become so absolutist that here's the position the NRA is in. The NRA has said, as I said, that if you have a protection order against you, you should not be even temporarily disarmed, right? At the same time, the NRA is involved in marketing weapons to women that are, because, well, you could be the product, you could be the victim of this kind of sexual predator. Well, most women's sexual predators are not strangers. They're people they know, and they're people who they get protection orders against, right? And so they're out there saying what you really need, as they did in one case, you need a weapon which has body armor piercing ammunition to protect yourself.
Because I don't see that out there. I'm not seeing this. Where are you finding this? Where they're trying to promote women to buy armor piercing ammunition and guns that'll...
Well, no, it's not the NRA specifically. What I'm saying, though, is that Tom
Even
Dickinson.
The gun manufacturers, I don't see it.
No, they do. Tom Dickinson had an article which documented the specific manufacturer. And the point I'm making, though, is you're absolutely right. The positions have become almost ludicrous on both sides. And I agree with you. We're way overreacting to a small number of events that we probably can't present.
Well, it's like Timothy, like I told Ed, I said, again, I just keep coming back to this is not as big a problem as the media is hyping it up to be. Yes, when 26 children are killed by an assault weapon, it's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
But it's no less horrible than the hundreds of people that were killed and maimed by some fertilizer with Timothy McVeigh. It's
Right.
just whacked
but
out people are going to find ways to kill people.
Right, but let's minimize the potential for them to find those ways. I mean, clearly an assault weapon is for that purpose. Fertilizer, it may have some other purposes as well. So that's a more creative sick mind. But let's take away the option for crazies. I mean,
If
gosh.
assault weapons are such a problem, Ed, why is it that less than 2% of all the murders in the United States are taking place by assault weapons?
What percentage of the horrendous massacres, these shootings like in Newtown, what percentage of those are conducted with an assault weapon? A lot higher.
Dead people are dead people, whether it's 26 at a time.
Okay, well,
or
but-
190, it's still dead people.
Ed, the argument I would make, Ed, is why waste political capital on an assault weapons ban, which is mostly, as I said, and we're saying, feel-good legislation.
Exactly.
If you want to waste your political capital, get rid of the immunity the gun manufacturers have against any lawsuit against them.
How about that, Charles?
What's that?
How about that, what Charles has suggested?
I didn't hear what he said.
Well, what I said is that, in 2005, the gun manufacturers have a blanket immunity against being sued. Now, they claimed it was because of junk lawsuits that they had to spend so much money defending themselves. Now, that infringes on people's First and Seventh Amendment rights.
I have a real problem. I don't really understand that. I haven't thought it through. But on the surface, I don't understand why a manufacturer of any weapon should be sued because someone used that weapon illegally. No more than if I take a steak knife and come kill you, the manufacturer of that steak knife should not be able to be sued because I used it as a weapon.
Correct. No, I agree with you. Right. The fact that you get killed with a firearm doesn't mean that the firearm manufacturer is liable.
Right.
But the firearm manufacturer is liable if I'm a cop's wife and the cop was killed by armor-piercing ammunition that you sold. Why are we allowing companies? If we make it economically unfeasible to sell armor-piercing ammunition, it won't get sold anymore. And that's the market working its magic. I think that they should have no immunity. I agree with you. You can't say that someone who gets killed with a gun, automatically it's the gun manufacturer's fault. But what about the fact that in Chicago, where they could not sell the weapons of choice for the Chicago gangs, they simply distributed to the gun dealers that in the suburbs ringing in the city the specific weapons that they knew were favored.
Here's the other thing I always want to leave is that the city of Chicago, as I understand it, has some of the toughest gun regulations in the United States. The state of Illinois has some of the toughest of any state, and the city of Chicago has even more tough gun laws as far as being able to purchase guns, carry guns, all of the legislation against guns. And yet, they have one of the highest murder rates by guns in the United States.
That's true.
More people were killed.
That's because so many people are distraught at how horrible the Chicago Cubs are.
There were more murders taking place in Chicago during the Afghan war than troops were killed in the Afghan war for the United States. There were more people murdered in Chicago. Now, if laws are solving the problem, if banning weapons are solving the problem, how is it that the city that has some of the toughest laws has the highest murder rate?
Well, that's
It's because the criminals don't care about laws, Ed. You're taking the guns away from the good people, but the criminals will always find a way to get the guns.
Well,
has outlawing cocaine caused people not to do cocaine and not to distribute cocaine? No.
Well, and interestingly, that's a good point. The criminals will get guns. And it turns out that 60% of the weapons that the ATF could trace in the last 5 years trace back to 2% of the gun dealers in weapons involved in crimes. So, in fact, there is a modicum, there is a cadre of people who sell guns who are selling into this network. The other thing we haven't talked about is the assault weapons south of the border, because nobody cares because it's Mexico. And
folks, I got to run to a break. Charles, or Chuck, rather, thank you for the call. Appreciate it. And Charles, I'd like to talk solutions when we come back. I mean, we've talked a lot about the problem, and and finding some interesting common ground with your counterpart on the phone. Folks, if you'd like to join the conversation, we'll be back on the same topic here after the break at 244-0077. I do want to thank the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club and Iowa Physicians for Social Responsibility for sponsoring this program. And I'd like to thank Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment. Gateway is where I'm having lunch today and also supper. I've got to talk with my scheduler about that. Oh, I am my scheduler. You know what? I don't mind. It's great food, folks. Breakfast, lunch, and supper. You can get that at Gateway Market and Cafe. And also a fantastic place to grocery shop. I learned recently you can get flowers there as well. Really, really wonderfully fragrant, scented flowers. Charles, you should check that out.
I'm allergic to fragrances.
Oh, you are? Oh, gosh. All right, never mind. Anyway, I've also discovered a great selection of organic heirloom seeds, which I've bought many of and planted a bunch of. So, folks, check them out. Gateway Market and Cafe at 20th and Woodland. I'll be back in just a minute.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
The dawn of a new era begins.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 101 of WebcastOneLive.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait, howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going, man.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Folks, give us a shout at 244-0077 if you like. That's Mr. Baber's Neighbors, and we're back to our conversation. I want to thank Community CPA and Associates for sponsoring this segment of our show. And, of course, it's tax season, so you'll want to think about giving them a shout at 288-3188. 288-3188. Community CPA and Associates. Doing a heck of a job at growing a great business and providing a great service. 288-3188. Back to our conversation. I do want to read some of our mail on this issue in a bit, but Charles, we promised a little conversation about solutions.
Yes.
I mean, you're not a fan. I mean, if you were in the Senate right now, if you were in the U.S. Senate, would you be joining ranks with those conservative Southern Democrats in voting against the proposed renewal of the assault weapons ban?
I would vote against it for the same reason that, for the reason that it's insufficient to what it wants to do, and it's going to do nothing. I mean, I don't believe that we have hundreds of laws on the books now regulating gun manufacture, gun distribution. So it's time to take the tools we already have, and it's time to educate the American public. And I would say that you're better off with a market solution.
But this is a tool we had for 10 years.
Didn't work.
Okay, didn't work.
Didn't work. So, especially if you're Mexican, it didn't work.
Okay, but instead of discarding it, why not beef it up? Why not plug the loopholes?
Impossible, because they can't define what an assault weapon is, and it's not going to get passed in any form that's meaningful. I'd rather they put their energy somewhere else. One of them might be.
Yeah. What is the solution?
Let's educate the American people on the kind of industry that they're supporting when they go out to buy guns because someone has made them fearful that they have to have a gun at home.
And that's what Gabrielle Gifford's group is hoping to do. I think they're trying to provide that counter voice.
Let's see some pictures of the dead in Connecticut. Why is it that we haven't seen any of these pictures? Because they'd be too difficult for people to watch. They see more mayhem on The Living Dead. But maybe let's see the pictures of a child blown to pieces.
Well, when the small coffins were shown, that did elicit quite an emotional response in the American public.
Let people see what it really looks like to get killed by an automatic weapon.
Or any weapon.
Well, but in particular,
Really?
this automatic weapon has a muzzle velocity 9 times the most handguns. I mean, we know for a fact, at least in one case, because there was one open coffin, it took the girl's hand off as she tried to protect her face. All right, but let's look at this wonderful industry that you're supporting when you go out and you buy weapons. What's their strategies? One, they're running out of shooters, so they need to hook the kids who are young now, because the people who are older, their generations past them, have seemingly very little interest in guns. So they have magazines like Junior Shooters. In Junior Shooters, what's one of the advertisements? For a Rock River LAR-15 assault rifle. That's what you're marketing to an 8-year-old. Okay, that's wonderful industry.
How do you mean marketing to an 8-year-old?
Because this is
on the back of Fruit Loops boxes? Or
no,
what?
this is a magazine. This is a magazine like highlights. It's like highlights for gun people.
Okay, but it's a magazine targeted at
young
kids, preteen kids,
preteens.
So who? I mean, the dad gets that for his son to.
It's one of those things you can buy. It's just a magazine out there.
Stocking stuffer.
Right.
Merry Christmas, Prince of Peace.
Sure, and the people advertise in it are gun manufacturers, and it's part of their marketing.
So you can't stop that. That's freedom of speech.
No, but all I'm saying is this is the industry, all right? And understand that when you buy a gun, this is the industry that you're supporting. Through another entity called Families of Fields, they're trying to get 30 states to get rid of any regulation on children and guns. They want to make hunting licenses with no minimum age, and they also want to get rid of having to take mandatory safety courses before a child under the age of 15 handles a gun.
So no minimum age. Well, I mean, right now, I'm not sure what it is in Iowa.
I
know you can be quite young and hunt a deer.
Yeah.
No minimum age.
No minimum age.
I'm not sure how big of a market that would create.
They want to hook women because women, basically, if you hook women, you get the whole family, and women, up to this point, have not been big, buyers of guns. So, first thing they do is they dress up everything in pink. So they have these little accent kits that you can put on your assault rifle or whatever, that it all in hot pink. All right, and it's hard to believe this is what they do. And then, of course, they gin up this fear that you're going to stop a sexual predator, or as we said, probably somebody more than likely your husband, who you just got the protection order on, from coming after you by buying a weapon known as the, FN Herstal is the maker of this weapon. A 5.7 pistol fires rounds that can pierce body armor on the battlefield. A useful civilian weapon. Okay? And they call it the Ladies' Home Companion. That's the name of this weapon. All right?
Sounds like a name you put on a sex toy or something.
The zombie thing, as you said, they love the zombie thing, and they're using the zombie thing to sell weapons.
You mean the craze for zombies?
The craze for zombies.
I mean, is that really? I mean, are there really people buying weapons because of the fear of zombies?
It's part of it's part of the desensitizing of what weapons cause, which is actual harm to actual people.
Sure.
The prepper thing they love, the people who believe that
the
preppers, what used to be the people who built the bomb shelter because the nuclear war was coming in the 50s. Yeah. Now you have your preppers,
the survivalist type,
right? So you have things like the Executive Survivor's Kit. This is a wheeled briefcase that has an AR-15, 2 high-capacity magazines, 60 rounds of ammo, a first aid kit, and even the military field ration. So these are people who believe they're going to protect themselves.
And hopefully a whole bunch of heirloom seeds too, so you can plant your garden.
So you can grow yourself a curio cabinet.
Yeah.
And then where it really gets a little dicey, and this is where I think I go to the issue of why they should get rid of immunity, is the distribution of weapons. The willful distribution of weapons, knowing that they're ending up in the hands of the Mexican cartel, knowing that they're ending up in the hands of criminals in cities. And that's exactly what the industry is complicit in.
So they're not. I mean, they're not going to get rid of immunity at all. That's.
Well, they didn't have immunity until 2005, when the assault ban.
Oh, that's right.
When the assault ban went under,
I forgot that. Yeah.
The Republicans pushed through a giving blanket immunity except for product liability issues.
Right.
So if the gun blows up in your face, then you can actually sue the manufacturer.
One of the things that troubles me the most is the way in which the gun lobby was successful at eliminating research.
Mm-hmm.
So and
that's part of the picture.
Yeah, you really don't have a good sense of what's happening because the funding for digging into issues relevant to this has been vanquished.
Correct, and the government has been interested in looking at it as a public health issue, but of course that's interpreted as looking at a way to know who has guns, therefore they're going to come take them from your house. And yeah, I mean, if you ask me, what would be the solutions? Number one, universal background checks, because the notion, as was it Cornine, the guy
which 90% of the people support.
Yeah, 90% of people support. The idea that if we could just identify the mentally ill, then we'd be fine. Well, you can't do that without background checks. Okay. Number two, get rid of blanket immunity. I'm not saying that if someone gets killed with a gun, that a gun manufacturer is liable. Okay. In the same way that if somebody drinks and drives a car and kills somebody, the car manufacturer is liable.
Right.
But the car manufacturers don't advertise, hey, get drunk and drive our car.
Right.
Okay. You don't see a lot of people drinking beers and then getting into a car in the car commercials. But you have a culture.
You do see them driving way too fast, though.
It may well be.
Way too fast.
But the point is that it is not the fault of the car. And in some sense, it's not the fault of the gun, unless your gun manufacturers are basically jazzing up that kind of use of a weapon. And to me, there's no justification for ammunition like armor-piercing ammunition in the civilian world. And if you sell it, I think the first person who gets killed through their body armor, they should be suing that manufacturer, and that manufacturer either goes out of business or they stop making that.
That could have happened before 2005. Did it happen before 2005?
It did.
And what did it lead to? What were the court rulings on that?
There were, unfortunately, some of the biggest suits revolved around distribution, and even though they won in court, they were overturned at the federal level a number of times.
Really?
So
at the U.S. Supreme Court level?
I don't know if the Chicago case went all that way. I believe it may have. It's very similar to the D.C. case that the Supreme Court heard. So to me, get rid of the blanket immunity. I don't want, it's right. They shouldn't be sued for somebody using a weapon the way it was meant to be used, as hard as that is. But, you don't get to make people violent by what you're doing and to give them weaponry that induces that kind of violence. I mean, you're not giving somebody an assault weapon to hunt with. People have had weapons to hunt with for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
It's about what they're trying to do, and they're getting away with nod, nod, wink, wink. We're not really pushing this. The other thing is, there are things that are going on. There's divestiture. Certain, public pension plans have said they're going to get rid of, including California, they're going to get rid of all their investments.
Really, the state of California?
State of California's pension plan is going to get rid of all the investments that include gun manufacturers.
Really? I didn't know that.
Rahm Emanuel, who's, of course, mayor of Chicago, a city with a huge problem with gun violence, has basically told two of the major banks in Chicago that the city will do no business with them as long as they're giving money to gun manufacturers who are pushing against gun control. There's a lot of divestiture interest. And people should personally divest.
So other than education, divesting, Most of what you're talking about is stuff that either individuals can do or local municipalities or in some cases state governments can do.
Absolutely.
The only thing you're suggesting that we might expect Congress to do is the immunity issue.
Is get rid of the immunity.
Maybe can that be attempted at the state level?
It is actually existent at the state level. But then what the gun manufacturers try to do is kick it into federal court.
Which they've been successful at.
Correct.
Yeah.
And in federal court, since they have immunity, the case dies right there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what's happened.
So that would need to be a congressional change.
It would need to be a congressional change.
You're saying that right now the Senate Democrats are wasting their time with an assault weapons ban.
The only thing they'll get out of it is get a vote. And if you want to run against some of these people, then that's what you get. But in terms of actual public policy,
nobody seems worried
useful.
about voting. I mean, the folks who are voting against it don't seem to be concerned about it. Chuck Grassley doesn't seem to be concerned about it.
It's odd because it seems they're reading the same polls that told them that Romney was going to win.
Yeah, well.
The interesting thing is there was a front page article in the Times about 10 days ago showing the issue of the number of households that have weapons is diminishing quickly, and the biggest drop was in the South and in the West. So these are traditionally areas that we've been told are rock solid. You can't ever go against the Second Amendment down South. Well, it's turning out that's not the case.
Yeah.
Young people are not interested. Hispanics are not interested. Women are not interested. It's only, I think I've said this to you before. I mean, we love these trends about, violent crime has gone down as gun ownership has gone up. Well, here's a trend I'd point out to you. The number of doses of erectile dysfunction drugs has gone up at the same time as the amount of weapons that Americans own also. So what's the correlation there? No, essentially what's going on is the same people are buying weapons, and they're just stocking up.
Only a doctor can get away with saying that. I do see another slogan coming out of this conversation, though. Cars don't cause accidents, people cause accidents. Folks, we're going to continue this conversation. I want to share some of our mailbag with you when we come back, and you're welcome to join the talk here at 244-0077. That's 244-0077. Myself and Dr. Charles Goldman back at it in a few minutes.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Community CPA is the 15th largest CPA firm in Iowa, providing audit, tax, and accounting services. Community CPA specializes in international tax treaty and double taxation avoidance among countries and states. 9 dedicated, experienced, hardworking staff are the company's foundation, and their compassion towards every client is the secret behind Community CPA's success. At Community CPA, you can expect quality service year-round. Call 288-3188. Community CPA, 3816 Ingersoll. Experience the difference.
This is Dr. Holding, the Story County Veterinary Clinic. For 15 years, we have been spaying and neutering feral cat groups at affordable prices. Wild cats destroy game birds and songbirds. A single female cat can produce over 4,000 kittens in 7 years. The shelters are full, so unwanted kittens will be put to sleep. Your cats will stay home and stay healthy. Call us for all your dog and cat needs at the Story County Veterinary Clinic between Ames and Nevada on Highway 30, 1 mile east of Interstate 35. 515-232-8766.
Since 1994, Sid's Catering has graced Des Moines area events with quality service and rave reviews. Owner Sid Cohn's culinary career began with a Northeast Iowa vacation home for international clientele. Sid earned a Bachelor of Science in Hotel Restaurant Management and was the assistant clubhouse manager at Des Moines Golf and Country Club. Sid has a passion for fresh, local products and offers a wide range of options, including vegan, gluten-free, and ethnic. Mention the Fallon Forum when you book your breakfast or lunch event and get 10% off. Contact Sid's Catering at 208-2091. That's Sid's Catering at 208-2091.
Local farms, global flavor. That's the secret to Hawk's growing popularity. The best meals begin with the best ingredients, and 90% of Hawk's ingredients come from local farms. In addition to seasonal fruits and vegetables, Hawk features grass-fed beef and lamb, and pasture-raised chicken and duck, all raised without hormones, steroids, or cages. The coffee is fair trade, locally roasted, and Hawk's House liquors come from right here in Iowa. Hawk's owners go the extra mile, composting organic waste and recycling. For more information or to make reservations, visit hawktable.com. That's HOQ table.com.
It's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
I love driving to Newton to see the races.
Me too, but I only have to drive across town.
You live in Newton?
Yep, Newton's got small town charm and it's close to Des Moines. I love the safe, friendly neighborhoods and family-owned businesses. And Newton's wind energy industry is really taking off.
How'd you find your home?
Dan Kelly with First Choice Realty. And Dan helped me find my office too.
Next time, instead of just speeding by, I'll stop in and check out Newton.
Why don't you check out Newton? Call Dan Kelly at 641-521-9260 or Dan Kelly at mchsi.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Max Wellman bringing us back, folks. Max has another concert coming up on the 23rd of this month. Check out the details on my website, fallonforum.com. Go to the events page. And while we're talking about websites, folks, the Great March for Climate Action continues to organize and roll forward. This is going to be an event, hopefully, that has a significant impact on the climate crisis debate. And you can learn more about that. I've got a Facebook page up. It's simply Great March for Climate Action. That's on Facebook. And there is also a website, www.climatemarch.org. It's a work in progress, but the raw bones of it are there, and you can get more information about this event on that website. This segment of our show is sponsored by Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling, and there's a reason for that I'll tell you about at the end of the segment. But I want to read some of our mail. This one from Kim says, Kim writes, we don't need knee-jerk assaults on our liberties. Nice pun, Charles, huh? You got to give it to Kim. Nice pun. I might support increased anti-gun laws, if there were valid research demonstrating increased safety to the population and no increased risk.
Well, it gets back to what you're saying. We don't know that because we're not allowed to do the research, and that is specifically based on lobbying action from the NRA on our legislators.
Yeah, and not only did they pull the plug on research money, but they changed the way that the head of the ATF was appointed. So we haven't actually had an acting full-time director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Firearms.
Well, I don't know if the NRA changed it, but I mean,
no, they lobbied for it.
Yeah, well, you don't have to get anybody appointed now anyway. It doesn't make a difference. Only one senator has to be against you, and they can hold your appointment up indefinitely.
But they how did I can't remember how it used to work, but it didn't used to have to go through the same process. So you had this huge roadblock. Now you've got this roadblock, and really we've got no acting director.
It's been that way for a while, which is hard to have any
5 or 6
direction.
years?
Any direction when this is going on.
So again, Kim says I might support increased gun laws if you could demonstrate, increased safety to the people, to the population.
There are over 2,000 gun laws, both at federal and state level. Enforcement's an issue. ATF, of course, leaderless and underfunded. And part of it is this: in certain states, if you get a weapons charge, against you, there's no question. You're going to jail, and you're going to be in jail for a while. Maybe we should start, not worrying so much about putting people with minor drug possession charges in jail, and fill the jails up with the people who are violent and dangerous,
and a few CEOs,
and absolutely a few CEOs from Wall Street and the banks to go with them. Actually, that's where that's whom they should put on death row. But no, I think, unfortunately, for as much as we talk about violence, we very much undervalue the use of weapons in the commission of crimes and the possession of weapons as a punishable offense.
Let's see. Another listener, watcher, whatever, writes is critical of the comment that despite overwhelming support of the American people, my contention that folks polled want a ban on assault weapons renewed. He says that's not a true statement. If support was so overwhelming, why would they fear re-election nightmares? Why would I assume politicians fear re-election nightmares over this one vote? Well, I think that makes sense because there are states where, I mean, the poll is national, but locally you might get some situations where your constituency are going to be on the other side of this, and even if it's a marginal, majority that would support a ban, you may have a very vocal, outspoken constituency with a lot of money. I mean, a lot of this is money. The NRA donates very generously to campaigns.
Right. The NRA has gotten into the soft money field also, and I think it's more that, which is the fear that you are going to see a well-funded opponent in your primary from interests that would not be comfortable with you voting for an assault ban. I mean, it's just like many other areas. Let's face it, our government is not representative of the people anymore. It's representative of the moneyed interests.
Right.
Yeah. So this area is no different than any other.
Okay, Lou writes, Congress has no authority to ban weapons. Assault weapons is a misnomer as any weapon can be used for an assault. This is back to Chuck's point, a table knife, fertilizer. I get a little tired of that argument. The Second Amendment clearly states that the public's right to bear arms shall not be infringed. Banning weapons is infringing. They do not have the authority.
Well, as I said before, I don't think we're going to... Arguing the Second Amendment at this point is useless because it's been ruled on by the Supreme Court. They've already said reasonable regulation is allowed, but that people do have a right to bear arms in the United States. On the other hand, as far as I'm concerned, the Congress passing a law saying that I can't sue a company is an infringement clearly on my First Amendment rights to seek redress from the government, and then my Seventh Amendment rights to seek redress through civil proceedings with a jury of my peers.
All right, I got more mail for you, Charles.
Okay.
You're a popular guy today. All right, Jim writes, I'm pro-weapons. Sometimes I go to school to pick up my kids. Then he lays out this scenario. What if that this person at a school pulls out his weapon, I pull out mine and shoot the SOB dead. But then I forgot the law. The law makes me this new law. I'm not sure what he's referring to. This law makes me leave my weapon at home. So instead, I charge the killer, and as I limp as quickly as possible toward him, he shoots and kills not only my 3 kids, but 10 other people before I can leap upon him, and then he shoots me. Drives away, 24 dead. And it could have been avoided if the shooter was the first one shot.
Right. I mean that's obviously this is tongue in cheek. But it goes back to, we've heard after many of the mass killings, which is that if somebody else had a gun, they would have stopped it at that point. Well, we have at least 2 mass killings in which that was the case, and it did not stop it. At Columbine, there was in fact an armed guard who was not able to stop the massacre. And at the Gabby Giffords shooting, there were 3 people who actually had weapons. 2 of them were off-duty officers, and they eventually were involved in disarming the shooter after he had to stop to reload. But their point was that it's a great idea when you're thinking, it's like if it's TV, I'm going to jump up and, have, a gunfight at the OK Corral here.
Right.
But what they both said was, no, you stay down and don't make yourself a target until you have an opportunity to catch the person when they're reloading. So that notion that you're going to shoot it out with somebody is also, I think, a fatuous one. I mean, here's an example. The Times, this is actually from yesterday, front page article, rule of threat to family but allowed to keep guns. Okay, a woman in Spokane, Washington. Her former husband threatened to put a gun in her mouth and pull the trigger, she wrote in her petition for a temporary order for protection. He also said he'd put a cap in her if her new boyfriend gets near my kids. So she got the order from the judge and then asked whether the judge would make her husband turn in his weapons. He said no, that the Washington law didn't allow that. So 12 hours after he was served with the order, Mr. Holton was lying in wait when his former wife returned home from a date with their 2 children in tow. Armed with a small semi-automatic rifle that he'd bought several months before, he stepped out of his car, thrust the muzzle into her chest, and pushed her into the house. Fortunately, she was able to dial 911, and the police came and disarmed him. Wow. Now, if she had a gun he'd still have been able to surprise her and overpower her. Now, interestingly, when you ask, does regulation work? In fact, in this case, it does. California, which has a very strict regulation about having to turn in weaponry if you're the subject of a protective order, has had 3 counties do basically projects where they fastidiously go out, even to the point that the police go through the previous day's protection orders and go out and find the people that they know have weapons and have them turn them in for at least a period of 3 to 4 months. Because if you cool it off, that oftentimes gets you out of the period where most danger. So one of the counties, San Mateo, has not had a firearm-related domestic violence homicide in 3 years since they started that program. So there are clearly situations in which disarming someone preemptively and it's allowed. I mean, the California Supreme Court said does not violate this person's Second Amendment rights because they're a danger to the community. And it does work. So there are situations where that's reasonable. But, again, it's more the fear that you may have a gun than the actuality of you having a gun that's helpful. In other words, most robberies, home robberies in the United States are done when people aren't there.
Right.
And the reason is because...
That makes a lot of sense.
Right, because those who are perpetrating robberies tend to be not violent anyway, and they're not interested in finding out whether you have a gun. Now, in England, it's just the opposite. Most of the home robberies occur when people are there because it's a country in which people don't have weapons.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that sounds like an argument in support of...
Well, no, but it's not the reality of having the gun. In other words, the reality of having the gun is oftentimes that the gun's taken from you.
Right.
And you become a victim of the gun, or somebody in the house with you, not someone who comes into the house, but somebody with you pulls the gun and kills you with it, or you kill yourself with it.
Okay, so a couple more comments here. Martin writes, the assault weapons ban will fail because people are more concerned about the, quote, police state than they are the occasional crazies. Drones are killing men, women, and children every day, but since they aren't white American kids, I guess they don't count. Then he goes on to say, a warmongering government that seeks to disarm their citizens is more dangerous than any single gunman. Soviet Russia, Nazi Germany, etc., etc. That's really a packed comment.
Well, it's a packed comment because the drone warfare is being done in our name. It has nothing to do with our use of weapons domestically.
Right.
It's what we accept as it's our right to do that.
But he seems to be saying we should be paying more attention to that and less attention to this. But he also seems to suggest that that broad and really unrestricted ownership of guns is okay, given the fact that our government is becoming more dangerous. I
don't know that you could keep any weapon in your house that if your government wanted to come and take you out of your house, that would really truly protect you. It would make it more costly, but it wouldn't truly protect you because their access to technology is much greater than yours. So this is all part of the prepper thing. See, it used to be the Russians. Now it's our own government, and the world government, that has the troops hiding in Vancouver.
Jonathan writes in response to that comment, you really think an argument that compares the U.S. to Soviet Russia and Nazi Germany holds any water?
What's that?
Bizarre. He thinks that's a bizarre, and he thinks comparing the U.S. to the Soviet Union or Nazi Germany is
well, there are plenty of countries that are not the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany that do not believe in widespread gun ownership, and certainly the UK starts right there.
Yeah.
And they are far from a Nazi country.
Let's see. Bengu writes, I have been in the USA for the last 10 years and have sadly observed freedom being faded. It is so sad to see that people are buying into the political stories and do not see the danger that is approaching. What is also sad that people who criticize Bush are now applauding Obama for doing the same things, even on a larger scale.
What does that have to do relative to the gun discussion?
Yeah, it seems like this conversation went from guns into foreign policy, and some of which I share a concern about. So, anyway.
Well, I mean, we are a violent country, and we sanitize the violence not just in this realm, but the drone. We talked about this, when you were gone. Drone warfare allows us to sanitize our violence even more.
Yeah.
And we feel it's our right to stand astride the whole world for our interests. And the question is, at what point do those interests, what interests are we justifying? Yeah. And to some degree, it is about that the more security you try to engender, the more freedom you're going to give up. Yeah. And there is a balance, which is got to allow that there is going to be some bad things that happen, and you can't protect indefinitely against those things.
Well, Charles, thanks for being so well researched on this. The guy has notes everywhere, folks. Anyway, I don't know how you find time to do all that work while you're operating on people who.
Well, that's why we do so much with laparoscopically. There's a TV screen. We can just kind of scroll through this stuff while we're doing this.
All right. Thanks for joining us, folks. I want to thank Leonard Tinker for sponsoring this segment of our show. Tinker Heating and Cooling. We're talking furnace work, air conditioning work, or as I discovered this weekend, water heater and drying and dryer work. I've got a gas leak apparently, and so I'm not able to use the stove or the water heater for a couple days. So if I smell Charles, it's because I didn't get to take a shower. Kidding. I found a way to take a shower. But anyway,
did you go
folks,
looking for the gas leak with a lighter?
With a match, yes. I was looking for it. Where's that gas leak? It was down here somewhere. That's right. I found it. No, Tinker's there today actually fixing this leak, and so I'm grateful for that, folks. He's been doing this for 30 plus years. Give him a shout at 371-2114 for air conditioning and furnace matters. That's Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling, 371-2114. I want to thank Ryan Northfield for filling in for Maddie today as my producer. I want to thank Webcast One Live for providing the studio. We'll be back tomorrow. We're talking wind energy. Later in the week, we're going to talk, Troy Church will be joining me on Wednesday. We're going to talk about Des Moines' cultural scene. We're also going to talk with Peter Clay, formerly with the Great Ape Trust, about an issue overseas involving elephants that has an Iowa connection as well. And we got plenty more to get into as well this week, and certainly keeping an eye on Congress and on the Iowa State House. We'll be back, folks, tomorrow.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I'm administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
Enough said.